Hey, a win's a win. A win's a win. Warriors get it done somehow, some way against the 3 and something Detroit Pistons last night. Where do we start? Where do we start? There is so much always going on in Dub Nation, right? I guess let's start with Chris Paul, man. Let's start with Chris Paul. It sucks. I feel like I jinxed dude. I said, hey, we got to get him out of here for this. And I said that in the last video. I was like, it's nothing against Chris. I think he's done everything he's been asked to. I appreciate the way he's handled this entire situation. And as annoying as he had been as an opponent to watch, as an opposing fan, I respect the hell out of the dog in him, right? He's a dog of dogs. And to play this long at that size is an incredible feat. It really is. It really is. However, could this not be a blessing in disguise, just given the overall situation? Now, I think the other topic of this injury, fractured left hand, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, he dug in, and that's an injury that's happened to Chris several times. It's part of his playing style, right? Being that size, he likes to kind of dig in and poke at the ball, and it's been a big part of his game and why he is, I'm assuming, top 10 in steals all time, right? But that's an injury that's happened. At least it's not his shooting hand, but I'd assume 6 to 8 weeks at least. He's having surgery next week. What does that do, if anything, to his trade value? We all know that, his big $30 million contract is non-guaranteed next season. And so it could be a big contract to move. And honestly, he had been playing well enough. I thought that he might have added value to another team. You look at the Lakers situation and how bad they're struggling. He'd fit right in on that roster. How about the Knicks all of a sudden taking a step into true contention? I thought there were some teams that might be interested in adding him at the deadline. And now maybe that, as far as helping a team, I don't know, maybe he can recover in time for the playoffs. That's what they'll say. But all in all, the reality of it is when they made the move, I said it from the beginning, it wasn't so much about Chris Paul's fit with the Warriors. It was about removing Jordan Poole from the locker room, right or wrong. We're not going to get into that, dive down that rabbit hole again. But that's where I go back to, is this maybe a blessing in disguise? You also heard the Moody chants last night at Chase Center. Who says the Chase fans don't know what's going on, right? They were chanting Moody any opportunity they got, and eventually he found his way into the game, started that fourth quarter, and there's no way he could be at game speed. There's no way he could be at game speed and rhythm, but defensively, I thought he was moving well. He got a shot up or two, but he was a beat slow. People probably didn't love the fact that Corey Joe got in there before he did. And listen, Kojo, I don't think many of you are familiar with his game. He's a pretty good player, man. He's a pretty good player. He hasn't got an opportunity yet, but he's going to play with the same mentality as Chris Paul, but he's quite a bit bigger and he's quite a bit younger. So like as much as it sucks for CP, because this has just been such an ongoing issue in the latter years of his career, his durability, I don't think it's doom and gloom for the Warriors. One of my favorite sayings is, find the opportunity in your misfortune. And now Moody looks like he's going to finally get an opportunity here. And let's see. They may stumble into some things. I think that happens a lot more than people care to admit in all of sports, where an injury or something happens and a coach or a team, a system kind of stumbles into something new. And it's like, well, what do you know? Right. So let's see what happens here. I guess the other story is JK shows up with the big chop. Braid's gone. And, I was told at a young age, like whenever a woman cuts her hair, it means something, like something's going on in their lives, right? And I think that let's not just keep it on women, right? I think it's anyone who has long hair when they cut their hair. It usually represents like a changing, or maybe a new phase for them, a new season. And so I like the mature look for JK. You're going to have to train that thing, brush it down, and then, you got that natty hairline, but I like it. Played a season high 36 minutes, 11 points in that first half, attacking downhill, doing his thing. Went scoreless in the second half, but he closed the game. Let's talk a little bit about his game, because, I love the details. I love the coachy stuff. I think as far as offensively goes, he's having a lot of success when he can rake and take, when he can come up the court and he's kind of coming at you and changing pace and getting downhill, I think that that's when he's at his best. And you're seeing him use that in and out move. And it's pretty effective. I think the next phase for him in his ball handling and attacking downhill will be that between the leg where you can flip your shoulders, bang, bang, and then leave the other way. Hoopers know what I'm talking about. I think that would be the next evolution of his handle. And then in the post, it just looks so good. Mouse in the house post, it looks so smooth. I just hope they continue to nurture that with the minutes. And I'm a little worried that when Draymond returns, he won't have as many of those rake and take opportunities. Hey, rebound the ball and that takes care of it if he continues to hit the glass. But I'd like for them to sometimes give him the ball off the defensive glass so he can head up the court, because he's kind of like a baby Giannis in that sense, where if he gets a head full of steam, there's not a whole lot you can do with him, right? I think defensively is the bigger concern. I think I have an idea of what's going on with him, and I broke it down in today's breakdown. Links in the description. Support the channel. I think what's happening is, look, the Warriors have a weak side defensive issue. You guys know what an X out is, right? Where the weak side defenders cross each other and they close out. They kind of like switch on the closeout, right? They don't execute that well at all this season. And you usually the low man, which a lot of the times is Podziemski or CP, is a small guy. And so that creates a problem protecting the rim. And what I'm seeing is Kuminga a lot of the time is the high guy on the weak side. I hope I'm not losing y'all here. I'm not. I know who listens to this channel. The high guy on the weak side. And you're seeing him tag down low. And so you end up having too low and no one splitting the difference on the perimeter and contesting that weak side three ball. I think part of this is the size. I think Kuminga's thinking, hey, I'm the best athlete on this team, one of the bigger players. I got to come down and help contest the rim. But he's breaking the principle of the defense. The high guy gets out, the low man tags down. That's my understanding of it. And so I think that he's got to, you got to stick to the principles, or you got to put bigger. I think if we play bigger lineups, it will alleviate some of that temptation for both the weak side defenders to tag down into the paint. It's like a deja vu watching them both tag down corner three. And then you get the report today that Kerr and Kuminga have talked it out. And I think it's a credit to both of them. First, I want to credit Steve. I know not many people want to do that right now, but for, I think, giving a young man grace. Like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have said it to the media, but at the same time, they kind of forced his hand to. He did it subtly enough. He did it professionally enough that he didn't drop a nuke on the organization, right? But he forced the conversation that way. And as he moves forward and matures, it's like, hey, maybe just come to me right away, right? But I think credit both of them. This is what it's about. It's initiating a dialogue and a conversation and keeping the communication open, because I think that's where so many of these situations go south, right? Where when the communication stops, then you're led to assumptions from both sides. The media, the narrative takes over, and then it's unfixable. And so I love that they kind of nipped in the butt right away. And I love the fact that Steph stepped in and showed leadership, spoke with Kuminga and backed him and was like, yeah, you are right, but let's just keep it internal, right? And then again, Kuminga cutting the hair. Maybe this is a new more mature version of Kuminga. And so I think it's just important, and it's a credit to the organization. Unfortunately, I think we've all had to have focused on a lot of negative things lately in questioning decision-making and the chemistry in the locker room. But this is a sign towards the good and in the chemistry in the locker room, and them being able to seemingly repair this quickly, shake that off, and it's kind of like a fresh start, a fresh cut, and keep the communication open and continue to grow, because Kuminga isn't there yet. I know I'm guilty of it. We all want to kind of crown him already as next up. He's not there yet, right? And so there may be times where he plays less minutes, but when it's obvious he should, right? And as long as they keep communicating that and keep nurturing his growth, I feel better about the situation. I think we all can feel better about the situation as opposed to 24 or 48 hours ago. How about Klay though? This is 3 games in a row where we've seen him start to fill his cup defensively. start to fill his cup defensively. And listen, the lateral quickness, we know that leaves you as you age. But one signature trait from Klay defensively in his prime was the relentless pursuit. Like, you may beat him, but he's going to pursue you all the way till the whistle blows and try to recover into the play. And you saw him do that in a couple of possessions late. That big block on Cade certainly helped that Trace is in there as a rim protector. When you have more size, it allows your perimeter defenders to recover. But then you saw him flexing, right? Like, one thing when we talk about, I don't like to compare Steph and Klay much because it always ends in a nasty conversation. But one thing that Klay clears Steph on, and there's no argument, is cellies, right? He clears Steph on cellies. Like, they're always just innate aggression and usually some sort of letting his nuts hang, right? They're never planned. And you saw him get the glory and feel really good about his defense at the end of the game. I think that was probably the best thing that happened last night. How about the return of James Wiseman? And you heard Fitz, like, listen, man, it's been such a polarizing subject. I love the way Wise handled it. Just the pre-media, the post-media, the way he just treated it like another game and played. And again, in my breakdown, I spoke a little more about his game. I think the hope for him is, what I would guide him towards doing is, he's got a rim run every time down the floor. Because that's one thing when you see a kid that size, how easily he gets up and down the floor. He's got to just rim run and then make himself available. There are times where he does run the floor, but if you notice, he runs on a straight line and he doesn't give an angle for the pass. And you heard Fitz alluding to the fact that they don't ever give him the ball, and it was the same story when he was in Golden State. And listen, that is an indication of his biggest flaw. It's his hands and his reflexes. And you play with the guy enough times and you lose confidence in giving him the ball in those scenarios. And so that's kind of an indictment on his hands, I think. And the angles he takes to get himself open, he doesn't give guys good angles to give him the ball. But I do think that he is such a good kid by all accounts. Everybody loves him, right? And then you combine that with his size and the physical gifts he does have, he's going to get more and more opportunities and chances to figure it out, right? Because he's such a good kid and he wants it. So it was cool to see him. I'm glad that he got some run and he got an applause. And I'll leave it at that as far as Wiseman and his return. As far as the Pistons go overall, Monty Williams has caught a lot of flack for the losing streak. And listen, he has a hand in it. There's no doubt about it. But I think more of it is that you look at this roster, man. There is some bad basketball players on this Detroit Pistons roster. They got a lot of athletes. They only have like 2 or 3 basketball players, right? Did you watch Bogdanovich? Bogey was pulling what little hair he had left out of his head last night. He was like, dude, I am the best shooter. I am wide open. Like, he was so frustrated. And so I think a lot of it is they're just very low IQ players, young players trying to figure it out. Jaden Ivey, his hope to live up to the potential. I said it, Kings fans, some of y'all know, I was like, y'all got the right pick there. And Ivy, as good of an athlete as he is, he's not very good at basketball. And he's shooting it better than I thought he would. He shoots it with more confidence than I thought he would. But I think his chance is he's got to become an elite defender. He's got to become a really good defender because offensively, I don't think he has the instincts and the feel to have the ball in his hand a lot. He's at best going to be like a second side attacker. And look, it was too close for comfort. There's no doubt about it. But ultimately, at this point, with the context of how things have gone, a win's a win. You'll take it against anybody, no matter how it looks. We can't worry about style points. We got to just start racking up W's. And so the Raptors come into town tomorrow. They just got RJ Barrett, Siakam supposedly on the move. It'll be interesting. Maybe there'll be a in-person meeting between Mike Dunleavy and Majiri, the toughest negotiator in the league. But yeah, man, it sucks for CP. I hope that he has a quick recovery, and he's not going to go out this way, right? I think every time he gets injured, the first thing that runs through my mind is like, is this it for him? Is this it for him? I don't think it will be. He has too much fight in him and too much love of the game. Definitely going to see him again. I think the question is whether it's in a Warriors uniform or not. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.